Hi there folks, this is Austin with Block Gaming again, coming to you with a special challenger presentation to celebrate the WXP weekend that's going on right now. The premise behind this challenge is to take resources that have accumulated up to this event, put them in the bank, get them all sorted and squared away, and then from there attempt various Slayer tasks in a kind of last man standing against all of the monsters. I won't be resupplying, I won't be making use of any supplies that aren't in that tab already, or that aren't accumulated over time. So, for example, if a monster drops some sharks, fair to use those, but going to the G and buying more, not so much. Let's take a look at the resources that I've accumulated and what we'll be using today. Right. So, this is the tab in question, and it primarily consists of food. 500 monkfish, almost 20 prayer flasks, 300 sharks, some anti-fire potions, a bunch of Sardome and brews, in case we run into an emergency with, running out of almost 800 food. A small amount of Great Maki to supplement our prayer flasks, since they restore 5% of your prayer each. A very small amount of rocktails. I just happen to have those laying around. I don't think they're really worth the cost. But food aside, let's look at the gear we've got going. Ignore that artifacting and tearing in the background. I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, we have a full set of Guthans in case we're doing something like Hellhounds, where it's just more efficient to heal like that rather than using up our very limited amount of supplies. We've got a couple iterations of the various God Swords. The Lost Sword of King Raladin is basically a God Sword. It was just available for a special promotion. I didn't bring my Zamorak God Sword in here. Well, case in point, don't get to use it. We've got a Dark Bow in case our tasks are something like Aviancy, where we're required to use ranged. We've got a set of hybrid armor, counting what I'm wearing, and another iteration of ranged weapons, just in case. The Armadillo Cloak for ranged combat, or if we have to go into the God Wars dungeon. A lucky Armadillo chestplate, one of the few lucky items I happen to have picked up. I'm not a friend, I didn't spend 13,000 keys, but I have a couple floating around. We've got a few defense potions, some restore potions, a set of super restores, and then we have the Bone Crusher, which I'll be making use of for several of the more generic tasks. Kill 50 Hellhounds. Well, that'll help me get some Prairie XP out of it. The Helm of Warping, which lets me teleport to the Slayer dungeon for Abyssal Demons, and guarantee that I'll get them as tasks. The Helm of Darkness, which is the same thing for Dark Beasts, and the Mask of the Dagonoths, which I probably won't be using. I hate Dagonoth tasks, but it's there if we need it. I've got a Slayer Staff in here in case we're required to kill anything which mandates using the Slayer Dart and those sorts of things, but I didn't put the runes in here. No, we'll deal with it if we have to. A Dragonfire Shield in case we get assigned to kill dragons, and an Abyssal Vine Whip for the same reasons. In addition to that, we have the gear I'm currently wearing. We have a Lucky Bandos helmet, the Amulet of Fury, a Lucky Bandos chestplate, and then a bunch of Welfare War Priest hybrid gear. The Lucky gear is obviously supplemented, or could be supplemented by any other gear of that nature. It doesn't have to be the Lucky Bandos helmet, it can just be a regular one, but I have these, so I happen to be using them. The Bandos Cloak, the Vampirism Aura, which I'll probably only make use of for the really tough monsters, I just don't think the effect is that good. And then the Blade of Nymora and Avarius. Those are degradable tier 85 weapons. I won't be using those except against the really tough enemies. And then I have a Ring of Wealth on, because why not, and my Enchanted Gem to keep track of how many creatures I have left to kill, rather than running back to the bank every time. Right, so, as I said before, the rules are, I go get a Slayer task, I kill the monsters, I stash all of their loot in this tab, with the exception of charms, which will go in this tab. I could move them over, but why not? Totally cheating, I apologize. It just makes it easier to keep track of. I won't be using any summoning. All of the loot goes in there. I won't sell any of it. Once we're out of supplies, we're out of supplies. And we'll see how many Slayer tests we can get done and how much experience we can make. I'm currently at level 93 Slayer. There are the rest of my stats for those who are interested. We'll primarily be focusing on melee combat for obvious reasons, though if we get into a situation like Aviances, we can make it work. Right. So to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and swap out my Lucky Bandos helmet for the Helm of Warping, because I have a specific task in mind. I'm going to grab my gem bag for reasons that will be apparent momentarily, and we'll go with some monkfish. Don't really need prayer for what we're going to be doing for this first task, so I'll do an inventory like that. I'm going to make use of the Ferocious Ring to teleport to Curdle, the Slayer Master. And let's get a new task. So, because I have or am wearing the helmet in my inventory, I can select to have Abyssal Demons as a guaranteed task, and that's what we're going to go ahead and do. 161 of them. Excellent. So, then we teleport back to Canifis. I'm not going to use up the charges of the Slayer Helm that let me teleport, or the Slayer Helm, the Helm of Warping to go straight to the Abyssal Demons, because there's something I want to talk about while we're doing this. Right. So, obviously, just killing a bunch of monsters over and over wouldn't be particularly exciting. You know, it's nice to watch numbers go up and the big reveal of how much money is made at the end, but I have a couple other milestone goals in mind to keep things exciting as we go along the way. And the first of those is to get the Slayer Helm, because despite having 93 Slayer, I've never in one go accumulated enough points to buy the ability to craft the Slayer Helm. So that's goal number one. I'm at about 300 Slayer points now, so we're not that far off, and I won't actually be able to make it unless we get assigned something that drops the Black Mask, but it's a milestone along the way. So we're going to go over to Marcus here and ask him to give us a contract. Basically what that is, for those who are unfamiliar, is Marcus is a big coward, so he likes to ride on the back of other people and make it look like he killed the monsters they did. So if you've got a Slayer task, you can go and talk to him, and he will give you a contract which provides extra experience while you're slaying that monster. In this case, the Abyssal Demons. So if we read it, we can see that the contract is to give 161 extra, not extra, 161 Abyssal Demons, and we'll get extra experience for it. I think it's 20% base, but because of double experience, we're going to be seeing some wacky gains. Oh, I realized I brought the Blades Memora with me instead of a different weapon. Oh well, Abyssal Demons aren't that tough. They're really not worth it, but it'll help the task go by quicker. And since we've got someone fighting all of the Abyssal Demons, we're going to world hop quick. Get to lobby. Let's select, and let's just pick World 74. Right, so we have someone here, but they're not hogging all of the monsters, so we'll go ahead and get started. Abyssal Demons have this senseless ability where they teleport around the room. They only really go 1 or 2 tiles away from you, though, so it's not that big of a concern. They drop coins, which I won't be keeping track of in terms of the net total at the end, just because they aren't going to make that much of a difference. You know, when an inventory is worth 200 to 300k, the extra 100k we pick up over the course of all of this, not worth it. We're getting 666 experience for each one of these in terms of Slayer, which I find a little amusing given the demons, but it's just the way the math works out, because the experience we receive is doubled, and then we get 20% extra, and that might be doubled as well. So I think it's closer to 665.5, so every other one will be 666, but still gets a little chuckle out of me. I'm choosing to use Legacy Combat because that makes this guide or playthrough as universal as possible. If people are really good with EOC, they'll obviously be able to do better, beat my rates, etc., even if they don't have the same gear. Plus, you know, it makes this a little more laid back and casual. For some monsters like air roots, I'll be using EOC just because it's that much more efficient, and the monsters are designed assuming that you will use them. But Abyssal Demons have been in the game since before God War's Dungeon. They don't expect much. So, some of the primary drops for Abyssal Demons are the various rune gears they drop. Rune helms and rune daggers, I believe, are the two big ones. But they also drop a fair amount of coins and gems, which is why I brought the gem bag, because it just gets tedious to store a gem worth 1.1k in your inventory. But if you can store it in this fancy pocket that can hold like 40 of them, it's worthwhile. I've noticed substantial gains from it at any rate. So, there will probably be a lot of dead space here. I may edit out some of it in post, but ultimately we're just kind of hanging out, doing some Slayer. If people want to comment down below what their favorite Slayer task is, I'd be interested in seeing it. I'm a big fan of the Slayer tasks, which are low risk and steady rewards, as you'll have seen if you've watched my 515k in 1 hour video. I don't like the idea of bossing or fishing after rare loot. You know, got a 1 in a million chance to get a dragon pickaxe. Not my thing. I'd much rather get 4 to 5k a drop and be able to stay there for an hour or two. So, assuming, how do I put this? We get our tasks assigned to us randomly. I didn't even pick those up. Let's go. We get our tasks assigned to us randomly by Curadel, though there's some influence to be made by the masks, Slayer tickets, and points. You know, blocking tasks we don't like, skipping ones that are just inconvenient. But otherwise, you can't get the same task twice in a row without somehow manipulating the RNG like with the masks. But if we start to see a lot of the same task, I might try doing them in other ways, like bringing the Dark Bow to Abyssal Demons. Otherwise, I'll probably just stick with melee for the things which can be meleeed. It has no extra resource cost aside from when I'm using degrading weapons, so it leads to the most GP per kill, assuming you can kill them equally quickly. But, you know, just little things to mix it up. Here we have a, I forget what the term for them is, an elite Slayer monster, which is basically a tougher, less efficient version of the monster to fight. And in a second, we'll go ahead and fight it, because their drops are a little better. I don't find it to be worth the extra resources they take, because unlike the regular monsters, it's kind of assumed you'll be using EOC for them. But what the heck, let's make this interesting. So I do use Prayer against these guys just because they hit as hard as they do. And they get that little spiral around them that tells you that, hey, this is a thing. And if I remember right, if you're on a Slayer task that has an elite version, you're guaranteed to have the opportunity to fight one. Otherwise, it's like a 1 in 500 chance for it to spawn. So, as we can see, already taking up more resources than their non-elite counterparts by a long shot. I'll probably have to go to the bank after this. You know, having only been here for a little bit, I don't know how accurate this will be, but I'm fairly certain I'm actually taking more damage because I'm using the two one-handed weapons rather than something like the God Swords, just because on average I'm going to hit much lower, and that means they get an opportunity to hit me back, even if I'd be slightly less accurate with those weapons. So we got 2,500 Slayer EXP from that, which is pretty good. Something like 4 times our normal. And we got 2 drops. The first, I don't actually remember. But then we got 10 adamantine ore. If we just price check that quick, a little sneak peek of what will be coming at the end. That's 9k. Considering I ate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 monkfish and they cost about 400 GP each, we made our money back. But I wouldn't want to fight a whole bunch of those. So in the past, when I've had to kind of restart after losing my membership and not having a whole lot in the bank, I've come here with rune armor, and even that's proved to be pretty effective. Maybe that's the monsters showing their age, since they existed in a time when the Barrow's armor and Abyssal Whip were the best weapons in the game. And yes, Barrow's armor was totally a weapon, but you grasp my meaning. When gear tiers were much lower, you know, Rune was still like the 3rd best armor in the game. So, since we're on a task, the Abyssal Demons have a chance to drop the Abyssal Wand and Abyssal Orb, which are the main and offhand magic weapons for tier, is it 75 or 80? Might even be 70, it might be the same as the Wand of Treachery, but ultimately mid-tier weapons. And they're worth a fair chunk, but the drop rate is so low that I'm just not interested. In the 7,000 of these guys I've killed since I started playing, I've gotten 1 Abyssal Whip drop. I don't expect to get anything particularly rare from them. I'm not going to bother with the adamant items. I know they're worth a fair amount in theory, and can be alked if I had brought those runes. But at the end of the day, my inventory space is better served on other items, particularly when I don't clear up 5 or 6 spaces fighting the elite version of a monster. Even the rune daggers I'll sometimes drop, you know, if I get enough rune helm drops, etc. I might even take Guthans to these guys, because if I remember right, it works out decently well. That's the other reason for using Legacy Combat, is that the Guthans armor special effect works much better in Legacy than it does in EOC, and it's one of my favorite armors to use. So, I don't know. I think I'll hold off on that until our supplies start getting really low, because it does kind of defeat the point of this whole we're consuming supplies challenge. Ultimately, my Guthans gear isn't going to degrade before we finish this challenge. Not likely. So the shark drops will help our longevity. Sometimes I keep them to keep track of them as loot toward the final GP count, but for our purposes, especially with us running as low on food as we are, I think I'll go and just eat them right away. It is one advantage to having people, like lots of people in here, is they'll often not pick up the sharks or the rune daggers, and you can use that to augment your loot, but this guy seems to be doing a pretty good job of picking up after himself. What's his name? James 27, 1993. I'll assume that's a birthday, but either way, hi James if you happen to see this video. You probably won't. We did pick up an uncut dragonstone there. It can't go in the gem bag that I have because that takes an upgrade from dungeoneering that I haven't picked up yet. I'm not a big fan of dungeoneering. It's only level 63. But we can hold on to them. They're worth 15k a piece, which is more than just about anything else that can fill up a single inventory slot that these guys drop. Pure Essence is another one of those drops that's iffy to pick up, but it's noted and we have the room, so why not? We should probably be babysitting our health a little closer here and going back to the bank after this kill. I'll be swapping out to the God Sword because I'm fairly certain it'll make a difference in how much damage we're taking. More adamantine ore. As you can see, they only dropped 2, so that elite dropped many times as much as a single kill would have. Go back to the Canvas Bank. As of late, I've noticed a lot of these artifacting or glitching errors in Canvas, and I'm not really sure why. I haven't heard of anyone else having the problem, and I don't think it's something like my graphics card. So, go and equip the Sword of Raladin, put those back in the bank, and we should be good to go. I'm going to stock back up on Monkfish, except for one slot, and once more into the breach, I suppose. Between having to resupply, we killed 34, which is much lower than I usually get with a God Sword. Hopefully we'll see better returns now. I probably could have banked everything in the inventory that wasn't noted as well, but man, too late. Besides, next time we have to bank, I can make use of the mask to just teleport right back to them. There are a bunch of sharks up there. There is another level to the Canvas Slayer Tower, which you access by crossing that beam there, but I don't think I have the agility level required, so unfortunately we'll have to stay down here with the people who aren't willing to grind away hours and hours of their life on a skill, namely one that lets you run longer. So, as we can see, the hits are much higher. The fights are ending in 2 to 3 shots rather than 6, 7, 8 like it was with the dual wielding. So I do think that two-handing is the way to go with this. Maybe if you've got something like Drygores, it wouldn't make a difference, but here I think it does. So one of the other infrequent drops the Abyssal Demons have, if I remember right, that's it, are either Dragon Full Helms or part of the shield. I can never remember which. They also, as we see, can drop the Rune Chain Bodies, which are worth an absolute fortune in terms of regular drops. So it's nice to be able to pick those up. You may have noticed I'm not picking up the green and gold charms. That's because ultimately what little interest I have in the summoning skill is pretty limited to the gold or the crimson and blue charms. So for inventory purposes, I don't bother with gold and green. So while we're just kind of hanging out here killing them, this might be a good time to talk about some of the other goals or milestones I talked about. Obviously, the Slayer Helm is kind of the first big one, though I imagine we'll get that pretty quickly as long as I don't have to cancel any tasks. After that, there's obviously the other tiers of Slayer Helm to go ahead and earn. I think it's 100, 200, 300, and 400 more Slayer points to upgrade it, in addition to the actual resource costs. But beyond that, I would like to get to 95 Slayer, and I don't think that'll be a problem with how long we'll be doing this for. Once I do get there, I intend to go, or 96, I'm sorry, 96, and I intend to go visit the November high-level Slayer monsters that were released last year, the Acheron Mammoths, the Ripper Demons, the Wyverns. What was the fourth one? Oh, the Camel Warriors. I've never done any of those before, as evidenced by my current Slayer level, but I don't have an alt account or anything like that with 99 Slayer. Never fought them before. And I'm curious to see exactly how they stack up. I've heard some negative things, particularly about the Ripper Demons, but I think they're one of the coolest monsters, and I think they should have that insta-kill feature that they have, even if it's a little annoying to deal with on day one. After that, the opportunity to visit all of those, etc. I'd like to open a Raptor chest. I don't know how likely that is, because I think you can only get those while you're on a Slayer task for those monsters. So, Raptor chest may be a long way off. It depends on how lucky we get. Otherwise, I would like to get to Profundus. I may take some time off of doing these videos in the course of the double EXP weekend in order to finish up the last few skills I need. Woodcutting, dungeoneering, and construction I think are the only three I need, and most of those are pretty close. So that I can do, what is it called? So that I can do Morven's Special Slayer stuff in Profundus. Again, I've never been there. I've never tried it. I've never looked into what exactly it entails, but it's there, and I'd be curious to try it out. If we're looking really long-term, if we get some really sweet tasks, I wouldn't mind getting 99 Slayer, but we're going to run out of supplies before that. I guarantee it. If somehow we didn't, and we pursue a goal beyond that, 120 Slayer just got announced at Runefest, along with a new Slayer dungeon that'll be coming out for that in next June. That would be a nice goal to shoot for, but totally unrealistic. We're 36,000 EXP from 94 Slayer, and getting to 99 from 94 is, well, let's pull it up. Can't do it in combat. I will do it in just a moment then. Eat a shark quick. $5 million experience away. Abyssal demons give a fair amount of experience. They don't give that much even on double EXP weekend. If we set it for 96, though, after this fight is done, we see that that is the much more reasonable 1 million. That might happen if we really bust our butts. Ooh, raw lobster is one of the rare, quote-unquote, drops that they have. It's not from the rare drop table, I don't think, but it's a pretty infrequent drop. As we can see, they drop 165 of them. That may just end up getting counted in the total loot at the end, but at the same time, that would be handy if we really run out of supplies and need to make do with lobsters, because I can cook lobster. I've been cooking lobster for a while, actually. Can't cook monkfish or shark. I had to buy those off of the GE. Maybe on the next bank run I'll total up what all of our supplies that we have cost, just to get an idea of how much wealth we're having to spend here. In addition, my gear has a theoretical associated cost. I'm using, aside from the Amulet Fury, things which I didn't have to pay for a reason. The War Priest gear is dropped in the God Wars dungeon from their various representatives. If you want the War Priest of Saradomin gear, go kill Saradomin members. But, you know, you could figure out the cost of a Bandos chestplate, Bandos tassets, and etc. if you really wanted. But like I said, this particular task you can do in Rune. So, just curious to take a look here. Since we swapped out our weapon, we've killed almost twice as many, and we're still going good on supplies. We've only got 2 monkfish left, which is about where we were the last time we left, but we're taking much less damage between kills. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to 80, particularly if we keep getting shark drops. Case in point, that should keep us going for a while. So if this drags on long enough, I may cut out in the later sections everything other than, you know, rare drops, banking, you know, the big events. But I figured at least this first time it'd be worth showing you the process in whole. No, I'm not coming here and then secretly switching out to my Drygores or switching to EOC. This is what I do. I slap on Legacy mode, and I fight them using the supplies I have on hand. Another big point I wanted to make of doing this is not making use of summoning or super potions, extreme potions, etc. I can't make overloads, so you won't be seeing me taking on Telos or the other God Wars 2 dungeon bosses. I don't think I can make extremes just yet. I'm just making Sorrow Brews, which is why I have 300 of them. But I'm not using a yak, I'm not using a unicorn. You know, really basic stuff for people who just have the combat stats and don't have anything else. I'm not using Soul Split, which could almost completely negate the need for resources, because my prayer just isn't there. I've never had enough GP to get 92 prayer. Not using Guthix's Blessing or whatever the ability is in EOC that drains your adrenaline to heal you in ticks. Just regular old 2007 combat. How many are we at? 72. So we've killed another 10 just in those sharks. And we've gained 10,000 EXP easy, maybe 15, I don't remember exactly where we were at. Comment down below how bad my math is, I suppose. What sword is he using? Assuming that's not just an override, I think that's the Saradomin gun sword. Oh, we might be able to examine and find out in a second. Yep, he's using the Saradomin god sword. So his outfitting isn't much different than mine. He's got the Slayer helmet by the looks of it. It might even be a higher tier one. And he's got a fire cape, which I've never in my life gotten. But otherwise, same gear. So this is a pretty reasonable thing to bring to this in terms of how successful you're likely to be. We're down to 393 health. We don't have any food left, but I'm going to try one more, because what's the point of this if we're not risking death at some point? Say that, and I'm getting a little nervous. There we go. Maybe we could take one more, but I'm not going to try. Our Ring of Wealth shines more brightly is the in-game note that our Ring of Wealth caused us to roll on the drop table or was triggered by the drop table. I'm not convinced we got anything worthwhile from it. Sometimes it just seems to come up blank. I know the mods did a QA on the Ring of Wealth some time ago and even changed how it worked, but my understanding is limited to there's a rare drop table, it helps you access it on monsters who don't already have access to it, and it might help make your drops on the rare drop table better by eliminating some of the less useful ones, but I'm not sure. It's one of those things that is a question as old as Runescape, really. People used to be back and forth about whether or not it was any good. I wear it just in case, even if that's just me being superstitious. We're going to put the Ferocious Ring back in the bank because we don't really need it. I'm going to move my gems into there because I didn't realize they were in a different slot. I'm going to drop these because I didn't get them from the Abyssal Demons, and I want to keep this series honest. Don't remember where the one came from. I might be going delirious. We'll just drop it. I know where the other ones came from, and anything else should be in the gem bag. Alright, so we'll grab some more monkfish. We don't want to fill up our inventory because ultimately we get kills before we need to eat. I'm going to leave the noted items that we already have in the inventory because it just makes it easier for items to stack. And we can see that we've gotten that for drops mostly so far, plus what's already in our inventory. 4 rune chain bodies, that's getting close to 100k by itself. That's pretty good. We've killed 79 Abyssal Demons, which is pretty close to that 80 I initially hypothesized. Like I said, I've been doing this for a while. I've got a pretty good idea of what my limits are. So we're half done with the first task, and when we come back, we'll start doing the second half.